Hi.
Hello.
We're back.
We are back. Sarah and Sarah.
With coffee with a
double shot of the heebie-jeebies.
Woo! So today, actually, we're going to do some reaction videos for you, and you'll see those in other videos. But we are going to talk about the Winchester Mystery House. Woo!
Yeah,
because it's spooky season.
It is spooky season, and they do a tour. And so the Winchester Mystery House is located in San Jose, California.
Yep.
And have you been there?
I have been there.
I've been there too. Yeah.
So I have a funny little stories about that. So when I first went there, this was back in the Stone Age. They very much focused on the ghosts.
Really?
And the, Sarah Winchester, which we'll get into in a minute. How she was trying to keep the ghosts away, how she had a psychic live with her for years and years. And there was only really one tour. That's what the focus was. Okay.
Not anymore.
About 7 years later, the political climate had changed.
Okay.
And I went back with some friends and I was like, they didn't even mention it. Like, they didn't even mention the ghostly stuff at all. They were just kind of like
the whole intrigue of the
house.
I
I was like, am I in the same place? What's going on? And they just kind of said, well, she just built this strange house. And I was like, what about the whole it was like, yeah. And then I've been around it since, because when I was young, there was still space around the Winchester Mystery House. Because you have to remember, right, in the 1800s when she built it,
there was nothing.
There was nothing. And this was not the only type of house like this that was built in the Bay Area. During this time, a lot of very wealthy people from the East Coast were coming out here, and they were buying up acres of land and building these massive houses, right? So this is the only one that really has a really ghosty kind of a cool story element to it. But it was not uncommon for that to be happening in the 1800s, late 1800s. So,
but doors going into nothing.
Exactly.
And
it's like
13 handles.
Yeah, exactly.
There is definitely a little bit of spooky dookiness going on.
Absolutely. So Sarah Winchester was a woman who was married to a very wealthy man. And his name, let me get this, I think it was Henry.
Yeah, I think it was Henry too.
Henry Winchester. And he made his made his fortune by developing the repeating rifle.
Yep. And many other rifles too. So the Winchester rifles, it was like this really new technology where people didn't have to reload between bullets. And when you think about that, it's like, wow, how did he even come up with that? Yeah, and it just became a death trap.
Yeah, exactly.
And especially, I think he had commissions with the war and with the army and all of that. So it just
it was everywhere, and I mean, not just in the United States, but all over the world. So it became known as a rifle that won the war and won the West, right? So even though some native tribes actually got their hands on them, they were completely overwhelmed by the forces that were coming against them,
unfortunately,
Theodore Roosevelt and all those people. So that's how he made his fortune. And then what happened was she had a daughter who died as an infant.
Yeah, she had what was it?
Annie. Was it Annie?
Annie. Annie. She had influenza or something along those lines. It's a curable disease nowadays.
Yes, exactly.
And then her husband, 5 months later, passed away.
Yeah. So it was like this rapid fire, and when you're in the throes of grief, especially when you lose people you love so close together, you're not quite playing on the level field you normally play on. There's there's no way around that, right? And so she started to believe that this run of bad luck or life or whatever was, a curse, right? Of all these people that had been killed by the Winchester rifle. And I actually tried to find the number
How many people passed away?
How many people, but let me see. So but obviously they don't have an actual number, but there were over 720,000 rifles produced between 1873 and 1916.
So you have no idea.
So you have no idea.
Like if you look at that amount and how many bullets and how many times they can fire, I mean that could be millions.
Millions and millions of people. So she's in this terrible emotional state, I imagine.
And also in the time period, because at the time period,
yes.
the early 1800s, it is the brink of spiritualism.
Yeah.
So seances are an everyday occurrence. The Ouija board and psychics were big.
That's right. Ectoplasm. Yeah. So I mean, so you have this convergence, right, of personal tragedy and these cultural norms that are starting to happen. And spiritualism was a huge thing.
Yep.
And you have to figure a lot of it was charlatans.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But then there has to be like that 1%, right?
The 1%. The 1% makes me curious.
Exactly.
Because like it is, there is, I lean more towards skepticism. There you go. I can talk to that.
Yes.
Yeah. Of psychics and it's all about those questions and how you don't feed them and then you ask the right question. And then I don't know. I haven't met one of them yet that has had me 100% convinced. But it's just like ghosts. Like I'm like I have to see it to believe it.
And even then, is it a raccoon?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And how much are they feeding? Are you feeding into it?
Them, and how many of them are just come from maybe a background of hypervigilance where they can read people really well. So it's kind of a fascinating thing to look at. Like I said, probably I would say maybe 99.5% of them are charlatans, but there's that 1 to 0.5% where you're like, these people are actually dead on. And I think that those people usually don't make money from it. They're like running away from it as fast as they can, right?
Exactly.
They're like, this is too weird. So
like, I don't know if I want to know this information.
Yeah, exactly. So Sarah Winchester, she contacted a psychic.
And she was living on the East Coast at this point.
Yes, she was still on the East Coast. And the psychic basically said, she needed to atone for all of these people that had been killed. And they were, that's what she was being haunted and cursed by. And you have to go to the West Coast and buy land and build this house, and so she did.
Yeah.
She did, and it started out. She bought. How many acres was it? I don't have the acreage.
It was quite a few.
It was quite a few. So it was in. Let me just switch to a different.
And there was a farmhouse originally on it, right? There was lots of land and a little farmhouse. And then the psychic also told her, once you start building, you can't stop building. Yeah,
so that was the thing. And they say that from the time she moved there, you never heard quietness.
No, all through the night.
All through the night, hammering. And there were 5 kitchens that fed all the workers. And this is not like microwave or, I mean, when you're talking about the 1800s, you are talking about fully fire.
It's what
fire-fed ovens and exactly. So then you're dealing with 5 kitchen staffs too. I mean, it's like the expense of this beyond the building of the house.
All of that money though, and no family. She had a niece, and I think the niece had a nephew, or the niece had a son. But that was her whole family. Yeah. And everything else was lost, and she was atoning for these deaths, and was believing that she was haunted. Yeah. And then she started building. And
it turned out to be a 24,000 square foot house.
Yeah. And if you go there, it is magnificent. It is gorgeous. It is. And they have stained glass from Tiffany's. Yes. Inside there, and then also, Sarah Winchester really was an inventor herself.
Yeah, she was.
So she was inventing ways to make things easier for her staff. Yeah. Like she invented the little curve around the stairs, so when they swept, the dust would get stuck in.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Yep. And then how to water her plants a certain way. And then Yeah, there's a whole bunch of other stuff.
And she never hired an architect.
No, she went to her room. That's right. She went to her seance room, and the ghost told her what to build.
That's right.
And that's where she would draw out her plans, and that's
And then she also studied architectural design and construction, and then she'd go into her seance room and go, "Hey, what am I supposed to build now?"
Oh man.
So these are just some of the facts. There were 160 rooms.
Oh man.
By the time, and some of these rooms, when you go there, they're not actually rooms. They're just little,
like slits in a wall.
Little, slits in a wall. 52 skylights, 47 stairways and fireplaces, with many of them going to nowhere.
Yeah.
And one of the fireplaces, apparently, she was directed to build it so that the interior, was hollow, like the smoke would go up until 1 foot before the end of the roof, if I'm explaining that correctly.
And then it would just bellow back in?
It would just billow back in.
Interesting.
I don't know, was that to trap the spirits in, or?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know. That was kind of a funky one to me.
My biggest thing would be being a worker. That showed up there for the first day, like you're like an uncle, and the uncle's like, "Hey kid, I got a job for you." And you show up and you're going, "Okay, I'm so excited. We're gonna be working on this amazing house."
Yes.
And then you start building this chimney, and they're like, she's like, "Stop. That's as far as it goes."
As far as it goes.
You're going, what?
What?
Wait a minute.
And it makes you wonder what happens today with really wealthy people,
I know.
right? What money can buy.
Yes,
and what
exactly.
money can do.
Because they're loyal. She was overpaying them to make sure that they were extremely loyal, extremely dedicated.
Absolutely.
So everyone that worked for her was well paid.
Well paid and well fed. Because like I said, there were 5 kitchens for the workers and 1 kitchen for her. So 6 kitchens in total. And then the grounds were amazing.
Oh, the gardens.
The gardens. And you have to remember that this was in a time where California was literally just a rolling hills.
Yep.
Right? There was... If you wanted to build a garden,
you had to
an
build
English
it.
garden, and then you had to figure out the watering, and it was amazing. It really was. 2,000 doors, 10,000 windows. Yeah.
And 13 bathrooms.
13 bathrooms, exactly.
And throughout there's little mysteries. Like there was in one room, I think this was a seance room, I think everything that was placed in there was 13. 13 door handles, 13 hooks, 13 something else, but
yes, and in the dining room there was always a empty 13th setting. Even if she had parties, there was always the setting for whatever spirit would want to show up. But I didn't find anything, and you may know this, but I didn't find anything where there was anything really like freaky about.
No.
Like when you hear about like haunted housings, like the Conjuring house or something like that, where it's like knocking and people, not people, but spirits or whatever, running into you and scratching you or doing whatever.
Nothing violent.
Nothing violent. That's what was...
And when I did the tour, I know that tour guide, because that was one of the questions, has anything happened to you? And they did say that they would hear, I think, if I can go back, because has been like a couple, like 5 years since I've been there. I think they were saying like they would hear hammering occasionally. So there's like faint noises.
Okay.
And which, if you're looking at residual haunting, which would make sense because you have all that energy and nothing's stopping. And if time is on a loop and it's just those glimpses of the past happening, that would make sense because there was no stop. And if there was stop, the people around the town were worried. Like when the earthquake happened, when she was trapped in the room,
for quite a few hours, or was it days?
It was like 4 days? It was a long time. And no one could find her because she would switch rooms. She wanted to confuse.
She slept in a different room every single night.
Yep, she wanted to confuse them.
Yes,
And so, but to imagine having that mindset of always someone was out to get you, you were always on the edge, and she was very fearful of death for herself more than anything. Like she was doing this to run away from death.
Yes.
And
never feeling safe.
Never feeling safe, even in your own home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that place is like you can get lost
easily. Easily.
Yeah. And I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. It's it is an absolutely fascinating place to visit.
Did you feel anything when you were there? Like any like heebie-jeebies?
No, I don't remember feeling anything. And usually I remember stuff like that.
I was in awe. I think that was what I was just in awe of the multitude of how massive this construction would have been. The
project was. Yeah.
But I didn't feel anything. I think there might have been, I think it just had to play with the lights. Like in dark rooms, you definitely had that this is like a little spooky.
But darkness does that anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, so when you're in like the deep darkness, you just feel something.
Or a place that's supposed to be with people, and then all of a sudden there is no people, like schools.
Oh,
like if you're
that's true.
After
that
hours,
feels
and
weird.
Like, and it's quiet, and you're going, this is an eeriness to it. Hospitals too. So I don't know how much of that is like you automatically start putting
or in your
stories,
mind, right?
But it's just meant to be with people, and when there's no people,
it's kind of weird.
It's eerie.
It's just it's like the dead malls that are out there.
Yes.
Now, right.
I went to a mall recently, and they're trying to they are going to tear it down, but they're running through the leases. So there's like 4 or 5 stores still left
in there.
But you walk through this mall, and it is creepy. It is creepy. You're like, I should be in here. Like I feel like zombies or something's gonna happen.
Actually, that's like one of the places that in zombie apocalypse literature, or I mean, I guess people would call it literature, but books. I mean, some of the really good zombie apocalypse writers, they actually have, they're like they have to clear out the shopping malls, but they're like perfect places to live in apocalypse, right?
100%. You got them all.
You got everything.
You're like,
you got beds, you got clothes, you got food and water, bathrooms.
As long as electricity keeps going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
we're like, hopefully they're on solar.
Yeah, exactly. They start gathering the solar panels. But it's such a weird feeling when there should be people and you know there should be people.
And it's quiet.
And it's quiet. So you don't know if it's something beyond just what you feel like it should be, right?
But the
Winchester Mystery House, I think it would be cool if we visited.
I think that would be amazing.
So cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're super friendly. The staff and everything was amazing. And the tour alone is well worth it. I think it was an hour and a half tour.
Yeah, and now they have quite a few tours. They have the ghost tour.
Ooh, we have to do that one.
Yeah, they have the regular tour, which apparently I got the ghost one, the first one I went.
We did the regular.
But they didn't have, but at that time they only had one tour you could take, but now they have multiples, right? So, and then they have the garden tour.
Yep.
And apparently during the holidays they do have like a holiday fair that you can go to, so that would be kind of cool to go to. That would be neat too, But it's one of those houses I think it's just there, and there's so much out there about it, but it's still so fascinating.
Yeah, it's the oddity of it. It's like you're sitting there going, it doesn't make sense, but you want to see it for yourself. Yeah. And then when you're there and you see like there's staircases that just go right up to the ceiling. Yeah. And then doors that open like 3 drops
literally
down.
If you stepped out, you'd be done. You'd be done.
And
then there's windows that are in the floor. So you look straight down into the floor below.
Yep. And then the stairs, because Sarah Winchester, she was small. She was tiny. She was short. Yeah. And she had arthritis extremely bad. So she had them rebuild the stairs. So each stair was only like 2 or 3 inches tall. Yeah. And then she can just shuffle up and it would just crisscross up. Yeah. And so like just weird little. And especially in the 1800s. Yeah. Where you're sitting there going, but again, she did have her spirit room and who knows what they were telling her. But she never ran out of money. No, like she was her husband. Like I think he created everything went into a trust. I think, and then she was fed that money, and she was gaining like $5,000 to $10,000 a day back then. Like she was beyond wealthy. Yeah, and the money was making money, even though she was spending money. Yep. And then she kept that psychic on the payroll.
until she passed.
Yeah.
And they were, when she was passing away, they were still hammering on the house.
Yeah, I imagine she would have panicked if they didn't.
Yeah.
Imagine being on your deathbed and you've gone all of that distance and then all of a sudden they stop.
You're
like,
You're
wait.
oh,
and
yeah.
she's getting out of bed. I'm not ready.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not ready.
No. You know, she's hoping the noise keeps going so that she can slightly,
just be like, I'm out.
slip away. Yeah.
Peacefully, the ghosts are here.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm over there now.
Exactly.
Now, what do you think of, I mean, because she spent her whole life in that panic stress, and they do say, like, some hauntings happen if there's trauma.
Yes.
Do you think with that much fear that she could possibly be haunting that home also? Like, do you think she would
possibly leave? I've never heard that.
I haven't either, but there's a lot of trauma that happens.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, they say, like, that if humans do experience a lot of trauma with the residual hauntings, especially, they're gonna stay in the area. It's like when you go to some of the Civil War sites, they say
walking.
And then there's one, I can't remember what it is right now, but if you go into, it was a planning room that like the generals and the soldiers would all be, you know, planning their war, their plans, strategies, and sometimes people walk in there and they can see them, the whole room full of soldiers and officers.
See, that's fascinating. Now, so with the residual haunting, do you think that's just a glimpse in time where it's just that much energy is festered? I don't think it's really a conscious haunting.
No, I look at residual as kind of a movie plane.
That's what I think so too. It's like it just relaxed. The spirit isn't stuck there. No. But it's just a glimpse of the energy that was left behind.
Yeah, almost like a Derek type photograph.
And it can't hurt you. You're just glimpsing something from the past.
No. And the thing is at the end of the day, we're all energy.
Yes.
Right?
And then time is...
And energy is neither created nor
destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And then time is in a circle, so anywhere... Because Einstein had said that, and we're going off topic.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Einstein had said time was infinite, and so when he died, he wrote his friend who had already passed away a letter, and it had said that it was talking about how he already knew that he had died, and that but he couldn't possibly know because the cycle would begin again. So time was in a loop. So if you look at psychics who especially in the past, who saw airplanes flying and saw things from the future in these glimpses. Yeah. You're going, can residual hauntings, is it just strictly from the past, or can residual hauntings from the future be stuck in the past? Like there's a... you start going, your mind starts twisting.
Because it is, you know, in the Western world, we are a linear thinking society, right? Because we're like from the Greeks and that type of thing. And it's from A to B to C to D. But in the Eastern cultures, it is like a spiral, right? And so you would think that in the spiral, maybe the points don't touch, but they're coinciding at points, right? So it would make sense to think that right now we can see future if we're sensitive enough to it.
Have a glimpse into
it, but we don't really know what we're seeing. No. It's like for people with the horse and, well, not even horse and buggies, but way back, maybe they got a glimpse of locomotives. Yeah. What is this like machine, this terrible the steel machine puffing, steam out of it. I mean, coming across the landscape. Yeah. Yeah, it is fascinating. And it, you know, my understanding is that there is no, there's not even a step. You just slide into, like one breath you're here and the next breath you're not. Yeah. That's my understanding of it, just because of the stuff that I've experienced. But it makes perfect sense what Einstein said, right?
Well, yeah.
Right? You just, because energy is energy, and your soul is
exactly.
energy. If you believe you have a soul.
Yeah, exactly. And then the whole dark matter, but that's a whole different.
Yeah, that's a whole different loop. Yeah, we can talk about black holes, white holes, and dark
matter, all of that fun stuff.
The whole thing. But it's really interesting that this, you know, she's left such a legacy, Sarah Winchester. Yeah. And it's a legacy built on fear.
100%.
You know, and because we always think of legacies as, oh, these positive, wonderful things and, you know, whatever. But sometimes people's motivations are not quite what we think they are.
Not at all. And especially like most time back in those days, women would remarry. They would rebirth children. They would grow a different second family.
Yeah.
She didn't.
She didn't.
She grew up, or she held on to that grief and she held it, and then she created something that's still there.
That's even more lasting, some would say.
Yeah.
Which is kind of
It's
interesting.
eerie.
Yeah. So hopefully one day in the future we can take a field trip.
Yeah.
And we can go to the Winchester Mystery House.
That would be amazing.
That would be awesome.
I'm in.
That would be
It's
awesome.
like that in the Stanley Hotel. Yes.
Yeah, the Stanley Hotel would be cool too, for sure. But if you've gone to the Winchester Mystery House, let us know what you think. Let us know if you actually felt anything there.
Or heard
Sarah
any stories or any of that. Yeah.
So that would be really cool. So just let us know, and we'll be back again soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.